time we'll bring this public hearing to order. Of course, the reason for the hearing is to obtain comments, objections, positive comments, whatever, from the folks that are here. I'm assuming many of you are landlords or interested parties. Maybe we have some tenants here. If you bear with me, I'd like to read the preamble to our ordinance, which I think lays out pretty well the justification or rationale. And that's also what has been on our website. Please forgive me if I read this to you, and maybe can kind of express why we're attempting to do. I'm about as loud as I can talk, guys. I'll come out front here. How's that?
Yeah, we can.
The acoustics in here aren't great without some amplification. Our preamble says, the recent 2010 U.S. Census reveals that there are more renter-occupied housing units than owner-occupied housing units within the borough of Lewistown. Renter-occupied housing units frequently result in housing units that are not maintained in accordance with various codes and ordinances of the borough. Health and welfare violations, management code, and fire violations and resulting conditions are detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the borough and its residents. The Borough Council finds that as the number of residential rental units has increased, certain pre-existing housing units previously that were owner-occupied are now rental units. Many of these rental units have been permitted to become deteriorated. They are unsafe and unsanitary by the owner, some of whom do not reside within the borough. In many cases, this results in problems and issues of concern to neighbors of the property owners. It is also found that there is a greater incidence of disruptive conduct as well as problems in relation to maintenance and upkeep of properties where the property is not owner-occupied. So why should we implement this ordinance? I have 7 good reasons here. Councilman Shell was kind enough to let me borrow these. He did some research, and I think these express our reasons very well. Number one reason is to inventory existing rental units. How many do we have in Lewistown? We'll get a number by requiring registration. Number 2, to ensure that rental units are receiving regular maintenance. Number 3, to improve the safety of tenants and first responders in an emergency. Number 4, to help landlords understand their responsibilities with respect to property maintenance. Number 5 is to help tenants understand expectations of them in terms of conduct and property maintenance. 6 is to protect neighborhoods against disruptive tenants or irresponsible landlords. And 7, to provide law enforcement officials another tool to address disruptive comment. Frankly, most of the problems we have in here, and these gentlemen would probably, if we'd ask them, would agree, most of our problems occur with rental units, not with owner-occupied units. So that's another reason we're interested in passing this ordinance. As we promised you back in December, we're going to have a second opportunity for landlords and other interested people to address council regarding the ordinance. The format tonight is for comment only. We're not going to have a discussion. If we start a discussion, I think we've well passed our allotted hour. Our scheduled meeting is 5:30. So try to keep your comments if you have one. I asked John, our borough manager, to take you in turn as he sees the hands, just as he did in the first meeting. Try to keep it to 5 minutes so we can get as many as possible. Some of you, I talked to Mr. Sellers. I think he wanted to read something. But shortly after that, he did put his article in the paper. Hopefully you've had a chance to read that as well. He tried to make some points in that article, and we feel as though we have the responses to those, which you may hear at a later time. As you stand, I know you're having trouble hearing me in the back. We may have trouble. Try to in a manner we can hear you, give us your name and address. If you are a landlord, it'd be helpful to know that. Maybe let us know how many units you own if you want to reveal that. But if you're a landlord, please let us know. First of all, we do need your name and address. So with that, John, do you want to let the folks express themselves here? Try to keep it to 5 minutes, and we'll try to listen to as many as we can.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Thorner. I live at 311 South Main Street.
And I own my own property. I don't have rentals. I've lived here since 1971. I went through the flood. I had a fire in 2003. And I have my house fixed up, but the properties around me are pulling my property value down. And I think it's a sad, sad situation for this borough to have 65% rentals. So there's a problem somewhere. What it is, I don't know. I've already said for a few people.
They don't know.
But no matter what way you come into Lewistown, there is properties that need to be taken care of, fixed up. We want to bring business into this borough. How are you going to do that whenever you stop at a stop sign or a red light and you got properties that are run down? That's the first thing people see, what's around them. I think that something has to be done to keep the outside appearance fixed up also, rather than just the inside with your smoke detectors and whatever. And I try to keep my place cleaned up. 3 or 4 times a year I'm out in front of my house, I clean my railing, I clean my siding, I clean my window, I keep my sidewalks cleaned off, and stuff like that. Yet, the other properties, they pull value of mine down. I just dumped $14,000, $15,000 in my house, putting new siding on, putting windows in, putting a roof on, stuff like that. I'll never get out of my house where I would have to give my house away if I ever wanted to move. Because I'd never get anything out of it. And, you know, that's just some of the things that, you know, that really irritates me. You know, that really irritates me about this. I think something's got to be done. And I got pictures here of where I live, and I'll tell you what, if you look at them, I go with heartset of what I have to put up with all the time, seeing. And I had to put a 6-foot-high privacy fence around my house because I didn't see some of this stuff around me. If I wanted to have people in to have a barbecue and stuff like that, I don't want to look at some of these homes that's broke down, windows are busted out and stuff like that. And I just think it's ridiculous, you know, the way some of these properties are let go. Not all landowners are like that. Some are kept very nice. Other ones, there's always 1 or 2 bad apples that ruins everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. We're going to, just before you start, we want to try to limit this to about 3 minutes per person if we can, and that way we can try to get through as many comments as we can.
My name is Tom Wirt. Can you hear me? I want you to hear me, so I can talk real loud. I live at 27 Grand Parkway North, and I have a house up here on Montgomery Avenue. I have some questions that I will ask the panel here, and I appreciate you doing this for us today. This is an important decision, maybe the most important that this council will ever make for the future of this town. So my first question is, and some of these come from hearsay, some of these come from people talking to me, and I'll address them to the people. The first one, Russ, is that I was told a couple weeks ago that you'd already hired a person to be the secretary for this position, this new ordinance. Is that correct?
I didn't think we were going into questions. I thought we were going to go into statements, so everybody...
You have to talk about it too.
Come on, what is this?
We have a part-time person that's helping with the codes office right now in possibly setting up, anticipating that this is going to be done. We do not have a full-time inspector or any kind of a codes person. That person is also a floater in Borough Hall, so she's not...
So what did the person was in the codes office, what happened with that person?
She's still there.
She's still in the codes office?
Yes.
So you hired a person, part-time, full-time?
We added a part-time person in codes, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before you had this bill passed, you put another person on the borough's payroll. That's what I want clarification on. That leads to the other thing.
She's already on borough payroll because she ran the community center part-time.
Yeah.
She ran this building part-time.
Okay.
She's helping out in Borough Hall with some other things as well, Tom.
She's not just related to codes.
Okay. All right, we won't drag the question out. We'll take the answer. The second question is the numbers. When this was being promoted, and that's the term I use, it was saying that 65%, you've already said that a couple times. The number that was quoted was somewhere around 2,500 properties. Isn't that correct?
That's not correct, no.
27 is the number that was
No, that's not
published.
correct either.
What's the number?
The number is, the approximate rental units is somewhere around 2,500. The actual properties is closer to about 1,800.
Speak up, we can't hear you.
Well, that's, you're talking about addresses A, B, C, D in those addresses. Those street numbers.
We're talking about tax parcels that contain units.
Tax parcels.
Yes.
Okay.
Approximately 1,800. But we don't have that exact figure because we don't have a database for that yet.
Okay. And you're saying that 300 of them are in bad shape. That's what I think the fire chief said. Is that correct?
That's an estimate.
Well, it's published. So,
Well, but
okay,
it's
so
still an estimate. It's an
if you
estimate.
have 2,500 units, I want to get to the point of what we're doing here. 2,500 units, 300 in bad shape, and we're writing an ordinance that should have addressed over the last 38 years that the ordinance was in place to handle dwellings by the code enforcement department and the people that run this city. It hadn't been done. So now we're writing an ordinance that's going to go beyond that.
Yeah.
And here's another question for both of you guys. In the Q&A, there was a borough website explaining the one-time registration fees and license fees would be used for. What is the registration fee and how much is it? I haven't seen any numbers on that.
The proposed registration fee is $45
The registration fee is $45
per parcel.
per parcel.
Yes.
Okay, and the license fee per parcel is how much?
The licensing fee per unit.
I beg your pardon?
The licensing fee per unit is $36 annually.
So the registration fee is, if like Ansel Apartments would have a registration fee of $45 and then $36 for each apartment in that building.
That's correct.
I don't think I knew that $45, but thank you for that.
Those are proposed numbers. That's not been...
Now, all along, before this ordinance was created, you were funded, the Rector's office was funded by tax dollars, and the revenues that they generated by selling building permits, etc. Is that correct?
That all goes into the general borough budget. Yes.
So now you are going to double his workload, well, not double, quadruple his workload, and you don't know the numbers of revenue that you're going to get to pay for that service.
We have estimates.
Huh?
We have estimates based on the numbers that we estimate, the number of parcels and the number of rental units.
Okay. All right. We'll go to some other things here. I'll get it out. I own a property on Montgomery Avenue. Purchased it in 1986 for $16,000 for my mother-in-law and father-in-law. Okay? They were renting on up the street. They couldn't afford to continue to pay those bills, so we bought the house for them. We were very blessed in our life so that they could live there rent-free. Does that qualify as a rental property?
Is it a rental unit?
Beg your pardon?
Is it a rental unit?
I just said she lives there rent-free.
Mr. Snow?
Rent-free is not a rental. No. You're not renting it.
You're not
No,
renting.
I don't rent it.
You own it.
I own it, sure. It's a separate address from my residence.
It's not a rental. People live in it.
No, it isn't a rental. That doesn't clarify.
We understand.
It's not owner occupied. Okay?
Okay.
It's not,
Just a minute. Okay? A residential rental unit is any structure within the borough of Lewistown which is occupied or intended to be occupied by someone other than the owner of the real estate as determined by the most current deed, and for which the owner of the parcel of real estate received or intends to receive any value, including but not limited to money, or exchange of services. In other words, it has to be rented. If you're letting her live there free, you're not getting any money, you're not getting any rent, you're not getting anything of value except your mother lives there.
Right.
So it's not a residential rental unit, therefore would not be covered by the ordinance.
Okay, one more question. I guess it's, who determined that you were going to hire somebody if there was a problem or Rex needed help, how is that identified? What is a consultant?
A consultant, and that was actually determined by, in the discussions, in law and order. Law and order is in front of the council, by the council. Now, it hasn't been passed yet. What a consultant is, let's get that for a consultant, what the codes ordinance says, merely said, if the codes office needs assistance, and an example would be included but not limited to it. For example, an issue of condition of a building may necessitate the codes officer engaging the assistance of an expert, an engineer. Assistance may be obtained in the form of a consultant. Okay, you have an inspector. You have an inspector, the inspector goes out.
That's not in the ordinance.
Yes, it is. It just says hire, no, I'm explaining. Do you want to argue with me, or do you want to listen to the answer?
I want to tell you that I've printed the website, the ordinance that you have available to all the citizens of this county, and if there's a change in it,
there's no change.
We don't know about.
There's no change. That is what a consultant is. A consultant would be hired. A consultant would be hired to look at that condition. For example, this ordinance, you can't put everything in the ordinance that could occur, but for example, it would review things like code violations. If you go into the property and the property is dangerous, or it has to be determined whether it's dangerous, the inspector may not have the expertise to determine whether or not the building is dangerous or whether or not it can be repaired.
Okay.
As a result, as a result, then the council would have to hire a consultant. Now, that money's in the fee, that money would be either in the fee or come out of our funds.
Okay, now, the next question is, the consultant hired, salaried?
Now, case by case basis, and that's like an engineer. You're looking at the building, you don't know, you cannot make an individual determination.
So is this someone local that is an expert?
It would depend on the expert. If there's, and it would depend on the expert. You have to have somebody who has some expertise in the area.
Tom, we can't monopolize, Tom. Can we break it off here pretty soon? I want to give some of these other folks a chance.
What's that?
Can we break this off a little bit?
I'm going to break it off after I finish my comment. Because, first of all, I asked him a straight question and he tells me that he's reading something that nobody else has seen.
How about one more and we'll give somebody else a chance?
Okay, I'm going to tell you. One more is, this cannot possibly work. You can't enforce the code ordinances for sidewalks. You can't enforce the ticket writing for expired meters. You can't enforce parking illegally in parking lots with students that don't have stickers in their cars. You're asking Rex to multiply his workload, and then you're calling in a consultant, and if I ever see that consultant is not doing exactly what you said, you're going to hear from a whole lot of people in this room and around if you do this. This won't work. You should not be doing this. You're not prepared. You don't have a budget. You're creating an ordinance, a bill, a law, without a budget. You don't know what your revenues are going to be. You don't know what your expenditures are going to be. You can't be doing that. I can't imagine you would approve that. If you're the man that approves these things. Decisions have consequences. You make the bad decision today, the people in this room will make their decision in the ballot box. It may take us a couple years, but this is not going to work. You jumped off the deep end on something that doesn't make any sense in the community this size. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Gutierrez. I live 901 West 4th Street. My landlord takes wonderful care of my house. No problem. I pay rent. But it's Lewistown Borough is none of their business who rents in that house that he should have to give you people that information. That's a personal thing. You're violating my constitutional rights by forcing him to give you that information. No, not going to happen.
Yes, sir.
Dave Barry, I live on the Stroke Mill. I have rental properties in town. The reason we're all here is because we think if you're having trouble with certain properties, you should go after them. Leave the rest of us alone. Absolutely.
the ordinances.
Yeah. And, yeah, I take care of my property. It's not my property under Section 8. I'm not against it because I have a problem. I'm against it because I don't think it's right. And the rest of these people, I think the majority of them don't either. So if you're here to represent us, we're here. Represent us and drop this thing.
Right. I'd kind of like to address what the gentleman stated about the way the properties look. I mean, this ordinance has been in effect for a long time.
Excuse me, ma'am, can we get your name and address?
It's Kathy Kasner. I live on Green Avenue. I have one rental property.
Thank you.
But with the gentleman's remark about the way the property looks, this has been going on for a number of years, which should have been taken care of through the years, not just now. You don't wait till something's already deteriorated and then try to enforce something. You know, you pull down, you stop at Sheets, what's the first thing you look at? A historical site sitting there that everyone in this town has known for many years, the Royal Dairy Building, sitting there with windows broken. What about that property? Don't you think that's an eyesore to Lewistown? No, that's not a rental property. It's someone that owns it. It was a business at one time. Take a ride up, going up over the Ridge Road. You start with the very first house on the corner, red brick house that's empty. You start taking a ride up further. You've got about 8 properties sitting up there empty. Windows broke out. Nobody lives in them. They're not landlord-tenant properties. You know, it's not just about eyesore for, you know, you want to go after the landlords with this. It's not just landlords, it's all properties in Lewistown that has been left go that has not been enforced for years. Why now? Is it about the money? Yes. There's your answer. You know, the ones that are employed by the borough to do this, is it union? Does the union stick by these people? I mean, if they're not doing their job, why isn't something being done about that? It should have been left go to, it got to this point. I mean, I take care of my property. You can go in, like I said, I've got people that live in my property that have 3 children. You walk in, you can't even tell that there's children that live in there. I keep up with everything. But you know what? Is there slumlords out there? Yeah, there's a lot of slumlords, but they should have been taken care of over the years. Not now that all the good ones got to pay for this because of them.
Brian Yoke, we have 3 rentals. I live in Baytown. One of my problems is I don't have the right, because of where I live, to vote for you people. If I did, I think there would be a big change. I wouldn't vote for any of you. And the reason I wouldn't vote for you is, you realize that Lewistown has the highest property tax. They're higher than Selinsgrove. We get taxed and taxed for every property we have, but yet I don't have a voice to say what I feel. It doesn't matter what you do, because I can't do anything about it. So I have to follow along. So you know what I'm doing? This morning I went into a realtor and said, here they are, sell them. I don't care what you get for them, get rid of them.
By him selling and then sitting empty, there's property tax this guy's got to have to pay. How many people, the reason there are so many rentals that's in this area, it's the economy. You need to start looking at this. Jobs, how many businesses have left this area? People start out with small properties. Their family grows. So what do? They put their house up for rent because they can't sell it. So what happens is you don't want to let it sit empty because you've got to pay property tax on it. So you have no other option but to rent your property. That is why there's so many rentals here.
No, I saw your hand.
Mel Smith, 19 Valley Road. Okay.
Speak up.
Mel Smith, 19 Valley Road. Now, I've asked the other situations, and I've always been given from the borough and from the county that this is a complaint-driven borough. Am I correct? I mean, everyone has told me that. The mayor has told me that, people in council have told me that.
The ordinance?
Just, it's a complaint-driven. You don't act on anything, whether it's the police or whatever, until a complaint is given, correct?
No.
I've been told that so many times by so many people. This is a complaint-driven borough, and I know that because I've been told that by people in power like you folks. Okay, and if it is, then why not educate the tenants to know what to expect as a tenant, and then educate them how to fill out a form to lodge a complaint. They lodge a complaint. That's going to get you the bad landlords. You know, you're doing a broad sweep and catching every landlord in the borough, and I don't think that that's right. There's a lot of good landlords in the borough, along with a lot of bad landlords. If you educate the tenants to fill out a form and to submit it, then you'll know where the bad ones are at, and then you can start implementing whatever you want to. First of all, that's going to lessen, instead of having 300 or 400 coming down on wrecks all one day, he'll be able to space it out. As the complaints come in, then you can work with it. Then that will build it from small up, and then as you need to, you add more people. But just to go across and catch every single landlord, that's not right. It just isn't. I ask today that you table this decision. If you value the opinion of everyone in this borough, and these are hard economic times, and to just go through a $500 a day fine, $1,000 a day fine, if you don't comply, it's just not right. It isn't right for anyone that has rental properties, especially if you've got good rental properties. You know, you're paying all these fees, all of this stuff. I just feel like things are just out of control. But I ask that you just table it. Educate the people, the tenants, the people that have problems with their landlords, get them to file. Then you have a complaint on file, then you can go and you can address the issues at hand. But to just get everyone in one fell swoop, it's not right. So I ask that you table it today.
My name is Jerry Cleveland. I live at 123 Sunset Road. I have two questions. Why do you want to know who lives in my rental? Can you answer me? Anyway.
Why do we want to know?
Why do you want to know? It's in your...
Yeah, why?
I'm referring to somebody from law enforcement. I can give you the answer. Emergency responders and our police department need that information because that is where
Now there's a baby born in that house. I have to tell you. Now there's an adult died. I have to tell you. Am I supposed to be doing all this stuff all the time?
No, that wasn't intended for that, Jerry. Just when you sign a lease or whatever your agreement is with the
I don't have a lease with my renter. That's another question. How are you going to get a copy of it? I trust my renter.
You're going to need a lease, I'm sorry.
You don't need a lease. No lawyer's going to tell you that. Now I got to rent a secretary or something to do all the work for me. Think about these things when you're trying to pass stuff. I'm not against you trying to do something about slum landlords and slum tenants. But why do I have to give you all this information that who lives in my rental apartment and what's my lease say? That's all private information.
I live in Wagner, Pennsylvania, and I only have one question. It's about the water, sewage, and garbage. If they don't pay it, the landlord has to pay it.
Yeah.
They use the water, they use all the services. Why isn't it their responsibility to pay it? Why does it always come back on us? That's all I have.
I can answer that. They don't want to.
Yes, sir.
Sure, want to try to collect it.
I think you people are missing the boat up there. I think what you ought to do is try to figure out a way that us landlords can collect money off of deadbeats that's in this stinking town. Amen. People in the police department and everybody else protecting them, that they go around and stick it to their landlord.
Because this ain't your property.
Rights. What rights do we have? We have no rights. And now you're trying to take more rights away from them. It's ridiculous. If you pass that ordinance, you're going to take the property value of Lewistown rental businesses right down to 2. It's already down to 2. Nobody wants to buy anything in the borough of Lewistown. Nobody.
Hi, my name is Chad. I live on 128 Green Avenue. I want to comment on what the man said.
Speak up.
We didn't catch your name.
Chad Kasner, I live on 128 Green Avenue. I'd like to comment on what the man just said there. He owns that property, and he says he don't have a lease. You set up there and tell him he needs to have a lease. He owns the property. He pays his taxes. Why does he need to have that lease? Right. It's his property. You're telling him what he has to do with his property.
Right.
Explain that to me. You just sat there and told that man he's going to need a lease.
The ordinance does require
That's his property.
It's up to him if he wants to rent that property out, he needs a lease.
Why?
Pennsylvania says he doesn't.
In this borough, he's going to need one if this passes. Number one, that's a business. To most of the landlords in here, the rental is a business. It's not something you do out of the kindness of your heart. And that is a reflection, that's a contract between him and the person he's doing business with.
Do any of you have rentals?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, sir.
We take a look back from 1976 up to present. Lewistown has prospered from an all-American city to all-American dump. And why is it going that way? I think if you look around, I think we can all see why it's going that way right here. Sitting right in front. They're driving us down.
Yeah, so they want more money.
That's the people way out of Lewistown.
About tax rates in the rental.
Everybody's rent's going to go up.
Okay. My name is Jackie Fisher, and I don't rent any apartments, but I am a resident of the borough, so I'm speaking from that aspect. And I just want to take about a minute. I have some observations and some suggestions. Number one, I think this is a sledgehammer approach. I really do. And I think we do better with a paintbrush approach, you know. And it's obvious that there's a lot of things to comment. That is a long ordinance. And I would suggest postponing a vote. But just a couple observations. There may be some discrimination felt by owners and unexpected consequences, actually legally, by owners who rent as compared to those who live in their units. Why should there be a difference in, you know, insurance and names of residents and hot water heaters, etc., in one house and you don't in another, simply because one person rents and one person doesn't? And another thing, I'm just hopping through that bill, if an issue is really important, 3 years is too long to wait. If it's an important issue, 3 years is too long. And some of the rules already exist, so I think that is a little superfluous, some of the things in that, like we have trash ordinances, we have noise ordinances, and so on. And I'm suggesting maybe, there probably are a lot of other ideas, but maybe a rental coordinator, and to work with the landlords of these properties that are problem properties, and have a registry of contractors and workers who are willing to work on these properties. You know, the rental coordinator and the landlord would do this at reasonable prices, And also have a list of organizations with contact person to help in particular problems, because we all know a lot of things we're not saying about this. And that is that sometimes people don't have the same values as other people, and you cannot legislate those values, charge the landlord $1,000, which could be put into improvements rather than, you know, paying a fine. And so I just think that we should rethink this thing. Otherwise, we'll have demolition, vacancies, lower tax income for the borough, and need for another homeless shelter. I just think we ought to rethink it.
Yes, sir.
My name is Randy Cusick. I live in Stroh's Mills, and we have a house on South Plain. I think it's unfair for the local government to classify all landlords as unsavory, and they don't care about their property. We have a rental in the borough and take care of it. It used to be our home until we decided to move out of Lewistown, but could not sell our home due to rise in flood insurance costs. And so we decided to rent it out. We take care of our property and blessed enough to have good renters. Anytime they call, they take care of the issue right then and there. I don't appreciate being called a slum landlord in your code of ethics. We do the extra cost of the flood insurance, and this proposal, we would have to charge our tenants more. And a lot of these tenants, they can't pay anymore. They're already in the poor. It shouldn't be allowed. So right now, as it would sit, we would actually have to let the bank take it back, kick the tenants out that's been good, that have done nothing wrong, and basically leave a place empty. And that's where we're headed in this town. We have plenty of empty places already. You're going to lose tax revenue. Have more vacant and abandoned buildings, so forth. No one wins in this situation. Yeah, the county. So, you know, I respect everybody's opinion, but this does nothing to clean up the clientele, and let's landlords, that some landlords get in their properties. Many tenants are just as bad as the landlords and don't respect the property they're leasing, and an ordinance will do nothing to clean up the clientele. In my opinion, the borough is way off base with this and have no business or reason asking what insurance I have, who lives there, where's my lease, or whether or not I'm selling the property. The more government gets involved, then there's less freedoms we have as American citizens. One possible solution is to have a system where a tenant or neighboring property owner can file a complaint with the borough if it is deemed unsafe and not taken care of. The landlord would have 30 days to make changes needed and make them pay for inspection to check the property. If this isn't done and doesn't pass inspection, then give the borough the right to fine them. And if you require permits, property managers, if owners do not live within 50 miles of the borough. I'm just upset. So, this way, the good landlords will not be punished and don't have to pay for these outlandish and unethical guidelines in the ordinance that is set before back to the council today. This allows good landlords such as myself to carry on their business in an affordable fashion. Also, this solution, the borough will truly find out who the slumlords are and repeat offenders are. I'm sincerely asking each person in the council to vote no on this project.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm in Lewistown. I rent here in Lewistown. I've been renting for a long time. I just had a comment speaking to folks that may be victims of domestic abuse or physical violence, something like that. Oftentimes they're placed in their own units, kind of, under the guise of secrecy. Having those folks register as a renter in these properties could subject them to maybe an open records request or something like that. So maybe you could speak on that or not, but that was one concern that I had, just making them register. Thank you.
That's a valid point, sir.
Anyway, I got the property in 20 Spring Street. It might be appropriate to have a more stringent nuisance ordinance, whatever, that way you can identify these landlords that are negligent.
I have a couple of property rentals in town. I would never buy another property in town. You're right. In the borough. In just the last 12 years that I've had them, they've taken the landlord has to pay water, garbage, and sewer. We don't even have a choice of who we get it from. I disagree with all that. If we don't, if it's not paid, then of course they put a lien against your property. What happened to just going and letting the people that were tenants be responsible? What happened to you guys being responsible and saying, okay, if we don't pay the bill, or they didn't pay the bill, we have to go after the person that created the bill. But it's not. You guys threw it on to the landlords. And you're saying, you guys got to do this. 67% of the property here in town is owned by the landlord. That means 67% is paying 100% here. And that's really what's coming down to. We have no say. You guys can tell us what we're going to do. You're putting a law into effect that is, where's it going to stop? Because once that law's in effect, you're going in there and say, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. You've got 30 days to take care of it. I think something's wrong in that picture. So, yeah, anybody looking for property, mine's for sale too.
John Rothermel, Grand Parkway. I have more questions than I have answers, and this has always been my problem. But I see here a consensus. The majority doesn't want this. Now, how can you have a few dictate to the majority to spend their money? There's just other ways to go about it. And I think that you should look hard, very hard at this, because the only redeeming factor is an election coming up. And that's what we have to look at. If we're not satisfied here, we're going to have to tell what we want at the polls.
I'm Ruth Varner. I live at 7 Mile Way. There's a Privacy Act that even for the Census Bureau, if you can knock on the door, the landlord is not required to tell you who lives in that property. But my biggest concern about this ordinance is one of the pages that says if the tenant has an infraction, we have to create a plan on how the tenant's going to remedy that. We have to enforce it. So now we're supposed to become the caseworker, the police officer, the counselor. It's not our place to tell the tenant how to do what he's supposed to do by the lease. It's not our place to have to write a plan for him to do it. You find him, you make him pay. It's in the lease for what he's supposed to do. It's not our place to enforce it. We can't put them out when they don't pay the rent, and we have to go get a district justice to do that enforcing. Then it's also their place to enforce what's in the lease, that the tenant has to do it when you cite them for failing to abide by the ordinance. You want to keep throwing everything back to the landlord. There's laws to take care of this. Just enforce your current laws.
Let me give you another scenario that may happen to the borough of Lewistown.
How about your name here, Bob?
Oh, Robert Corbin, 164 Swimmers Lane, Lewistown. Okay, one other thing. We've got a Democratic government We've got a Democratic president right now. How many illegals is he sending to Pennsylvania? You get these multiple buildings with multiple apartments in, they're going to fill them up with illegals. You people that you're so wise that you want the rental units, you're going to fill them up with illegals, and they say, no rentals, all family, all family. What are you going to do then? You're not going to do a thing because you can't do anything to an illegal.
One more thing I was going to mention. If we're really concerned about the way Lewistown looks, codes are already there to take care of that problem. Let's fix that first. If we push this through, it's going to be nothing different than the Taj Mahal that we put out there in the hill that increased our taxes. You know, it's a push through. People didn't want it. And this, you know, enough pushing was enough.
With their own consultant.
Go ahead, Nelson.
Well, I was listening. I'm Nelson Reefenack. I live on West 4th Street. I own my own property. I have no rentals. I have no dog in this fight. However, as I listen to the people here, they've talked about whether they have a lease or not. They have no lease. Your solicitor has said, well, if you don't charge rent, if you don't receive rent, it doesn't fall under this ordinance. How large a black market in rentals are we looking to have here? Then we have no idea who lives where. We have no idea what rentals are where. We have no idea who owns those rentals. We've lost everything at that point. My concern is, just like we talked about the illegal aliens, what size will the black market in rentals be? The gentleman who has no lease. I don't get rent from you, do I? No, you don't pay me a dime in rent. I no longer fall under your ordinance. Okay? This was a bad idea 5 years ago when I sat on council. It's a bad idea now, Russ, and it needs to be defeated.
Hi, my name's Bill Varner. I also live here in Lewistown. Actually, I live in Borough. I've spoken to council many times before. A few of the problems that I have with this is not whether or not we have a lease or we don't have a lease. State law clearly says we don't need a lease. It's just a handshake. We abide by the state laws. Confidentiality. It's written in our questions and answers that we got off the borough website that all the information will be kept strictly confidential. And I brought this up at our last meeting, and I'm still not satisfied. I look here at the new ordinance, and it says that the confidentiality will be kept confidential, but not limited to. But I go to the questions and answers, and it does not say in there, not limited to. That's a big problem. What's the big deal about not limited to? Is there another ulterior motive that I haven't thought of? I don't know. Anyway, the problem with some of the landlords are more responsible than others, don't dispute that. That's just a fact of life. Some people are more responsible than others. So it just doesn't make sense that we got to get this right. Last week, the United States Supreme Court spent time in Washington hearing about states that didn't set up insurance exchanges. Well, do people get tax credits or not? Well, because the document wasn't right. People pass things that they never even read. Let's get this right before we do it. We've been in existence here for a long time. Why today? 2 months from now, we're just fine. As long as we continue to work forward. That's all. Thank you.
Here's a suggestion. Everybody's sitting here most people, this is the majority of homeowners in your borough. A lot of us don't have a right to vote. But why don't you get a group of landlords together and let the landlords police the landlords through that committee? Then it costs the landlords who are not doing what you guys want them to do, they have to fix up their property. Because the pressure that will come from the landlords that aren't in that situation is going to do a lot more than what you're trying to do. Because all you're going to get is pushback. I think you guys know what's going to happen, or you didn't think this through. When you do this, and you've already have made steps to do it in your mind, when this happens, you have a lot of business people here with a lot of smarter minds than mine coming up with ways to push it right down your throat, because that's what you're doing to us. I asked you, get a committee of landlords together, tell them what you want. What do you have to lose?
I apologize for
Find
not,
landlords that don't come in compliance.
I apologize for not finishing my thought. The other big issue, we have not even scratched the surface here this evening, is that this is Plan 1 of 3. Am I right? That the next plan is going to be at private business, that the donut shop, the gas station, to inspect those properties.
That's incorrect, Bill.
And the third was private homeowners.
Yeah.
It's written in the ordinance. 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I read it somewhere. I didn't come up with that.
Not as far as anyone in this council is concerned.
Then
it's not in the ordinance. It's not in the ordinance. I don't know where you got it. It's not.
I'll have to read this.
Yes, but I don't want you to have in your hand. It's not in the ordinance. Whether they have a plan, that's up to council.
Phase 2 and 3 definitely.
I keep hearing that also, though. I don't know what people are talking about.
I read it right off the borough's website, that 29 page, it was right in there, phase 2 and phase 3 coming down the line.
Where?
You wrote it.
Because it isn't there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I read it.
Okay. Show me where.
I don't have it.
Hi, I'm Dwight Rittenhouse from Magnolia. I don't have any property in Lewistown Borough. I buy a lot of Section 8 property that's been, not Section 8, but Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac property, a lot of repo properties. I do know from looking at the real estate list in the borough of Lewistown, you have a lot of repo property here, bank-owned properties, which are sitting empty, that's been sitting empty for quite a few years. Somebody stated a little bit ago that there was 300 rental properties that was listed as delinquent properties that needed attention. I don't know where that number come from. But if you took that property, let alone there's over 100 repo properties in the borough that's listed on, and there's probably a lot more that's not listed, which is the ones that's sitting vacant with boards on the windows, with the windows kicked out, which hasn't had electricity for the last 4 or 5 years, which hasn't had windows in them for the last 5 or 6 years. I just bought one not in the borough last week. It was sitting empty since 2013. I think that you have everything in your hands right now, but you don't have the people to enforce the ordinances that's already in place. It's called the International Building Code. It's what we all abide by. If we go to remodel an apartment, we have to submit plans. We have to hire an engineer. We have to go through inspection. We have to go through all this to bring it up to the standards of today's way. Okay, so if anybody remodels other than structural remodeling, you can paint or whatever, you don't need code involved. But whenever code gets involved, these apartment buildings are all going to be brought up to standards by code, because you have to do it by the book. The ordinances that you're applying, if what this 31 page or ever how many pages it is, if you sit down and read that, you can go to the other book and find a duplicate of everything that you're writing or rewriting. You're trying to rewrite new laws that's already in effect. All you have to do is hire more people, raise the taxes of all the individuals in the borough, because you've got bank property that should be fixed up as well as the landlord tenant. Everybody's riding down the street looking at these properties, acting like they're all owned by a landlord. No, they're not. They're owned by your local bank. They're owned by a mortgage company in California. They're owned by your U.S. government. So this is what needs to be addressed. You need to devise a program to where you can enhance these properties. And one to make people own property in your borough. I think you're going about it all totally backwards. Each and every council member sitting there, when you vote yes for this tonight, you're going to have to face a lot of consequences down the road. I think it's a very bad thing.
Jeff, in the questions and answers on the borough website, why are all properties within the borough not being inspected, is the question. As indicated, the rental prospection is phase one. I'm going to skim through this. Phase one of a larger overall goal relating to code compliance and endorsements. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's not in the ordinance.
But
I think
your house. It came from your house.
It came from my house. It came from the borough. Okay. Okay. That bottom line is, I think that was written by the staff, and what it's saying, I think, is what they propose to do is also increase enforcement of other, like maintenance code, things like that also.
What that tells me is that is the intent.
That's finally up to these folks, but that's why that was in there, that they were going to address these other issues all along.
One more statement.
And it's not in this ordinance.
One more statement, I promise this will be the last. There is another spot in the ordinance that if my grass needs mowed, and it's in the lease that the tenant mows the grass, the code enforcement officer cites the tenant for not mowing the grass. If the grass does not get mowed, the tenant leaves, and according to the ordinance, I am ultimately responsible.
You are right now.
But I'm ultimately responsible.
You are right now.
Even if the police officer, the code enforcement officer, writes my tenant a ticket, am I responsible for his ticket?
You're ultimately responsible to maintain your property. You have a lease with a tenant.
Yes.
And that tenant does not comply with your lease. Bottom line, and we talked about this before.
Yes, we have.
You have to turn around and enforce it against your tenant. The borough doesn't have a contract with your tenant. You have the contract with your tenant. It's your property. Right now, let's say this ordinance is voted down tonight.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
And that's up to council.
Correct.
If this ordinance is voted down tonight, and this summer, when the grass is growing, and you have a tenant, and that tenant doesn't cut the grass, they'll get a notice, etc., etc. But if they don't cut the grass, you'll eventually be responsible for it because you are the property. It's the same way with the gentleman was saying about sewer, and that isn't like Lewistown law. But sewer and water, it's not Lewistown law. The way it is in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if you're the property owner, ultimately the property owner is responsible for that.
But if the ordinance were to pass the way it is written tonight, and we give you a copy of our leases, and now it's clearly stated on there that the tenant is responsible for this duty. And
you are also responsible for the smoke detectors, but you have to go to change the batteries every year too.
But let's stay focused on this, please. My question is, the way the life is now, the code enforcement officer would call me and say, I need my grass mowed. I would go to my tenant and take care of the situation. If this ordinance goes through the way it is, I would presume that the code enforcement officer, being as he has all my tenant's information now, would be able to go to my tenant directly and write him a ticket if he don't comply with the ordinance.
It's a combination. I think what would happen initially is you would be contacted to say, hey, your tenant is not complying.
But it isn't written that way in the ordinance.
Well, we can disagree on that, okay?
Well, but it is what it is.
I said we can disagree on that.
Okay, last one, we're gonna...
In other words, then, the rental agreement is not worth the paper it's written on.
Yes.
That's really what you're saying. Because it all reverts right back to the landowner.
No, it's worth the paper it's written on, except that you as the lessor are responsible to enforce it against your tenant.
Okay, you let that tenant go by, pass their rent, let it go, don't pay it, destroy your property, and move out, and we don't have a foot to stand on, because we can't get legal help that'll back us up at all. We got to swallow our losses We've been down that road, we went to every legal channel I know of. We've even had people that even stole the door off the bedroom door. Just completely, they're saying.
I'm familiar with that.
We did not. We were unable to collect one penny. We lost a couple $1,000 right there.
I agree. The way
So
the
that
law is to Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if you have a person who has no money, it is difficult to enforce your lease. I agree.
But yeah, you went and raised these fines and these fees on us on top of that. We don't have protection as landlords. We do not. We keep ours up.
Why don't you write ordinances that protect the landlord instead of giving to the tenant?
Yeah, there you go.
Write the ordinances to the landlord.
You want to fight somebody, then fight the ones that's guilty.
Folks, we ran out of time. We used up our allotted hour. I know this probably could go on another hour as the other meeting did. We're going to open our meeting here in a couple of seconds. At that point, I'm going to ask council to adjourn to executive session to discuss this legal matter.
What legal matter are you talking about?
Are you voting on this ordinance tonight? It doesn't say anything.
There may be a vote on it tonight, Tom. We have an executive session scheduled before the meeting. With this in mind,
you are going to vote on it tonight,
sir. So wait. So just a minute. The ad in the paper, yes, it will come up tonight. The ad in the paper noted that at 4:30 there was a public meeting, comment accepted from citizens, owners of properties, etc. That's what this is. That notice also states that at 5:30 during the regular meeting of Borough Council, the issue of addressing this adoption, not adoption, tabling, whatever, of the rental ordinance will come up. Okay, so yes, it has been notified, it's been posted, it's been advertised, and it will come up for a vote or something tonight.
Well, I would say this in closing, and we'll leave the meeting. You didn't earn your paycheck. You did not do due diligence, and you did not prepare this community for something that isn't going to work, and it's going to cost us, and taxes are going to increase. And we have one of the highest tax rates in the state for a borough. So I'm disappointed in your performance in this whole thing, and I think you should encourage these people to drop this thing until you have it right. If you want to present something, and you don't need something. You need to fix what you already have on the books for 38 years.
Okay. We're going to call
one other thing I'd like to say real quick. Why don't we have a show of hands of the people that's for this tonight, so you know, and the people that make any difference.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. How many for?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.